What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of 90 Day Fiance Season 9, Episode 14. So let's start off with Kobe and Emily. They are at the clothing store, and Kobe is trying on his tuxedo for the wedding. It's a white jacket, black vest, black pants tuxedo, and I don't like it. I don't like white jacket tuxedos when there's black pants and a black vest or whatever because it looks too much like a waiter. He looks like a waiter at a very high end restaurant. And so I don't really care for that look. If it was all white, like white jacket, white pants, a white vest, then I think that would look a little bit better. He would look more like a groom getting married. But the whole white jacket, black pants to me looks like a waiter. So Emily doesn't want to tell her parents about the pregnancy because she doesn't want to ruin her wedding. I don't know if she thinks that her parents are going to call off the wedding or they're going to just have like it's going to be a lot of tension at the wedding. I don't know. But I kind of agree with her. Emily is a very focused person, and I don't she's not my favorite character on this show, but she knows how to get things done the way that she wants it done. And so she really wants to control how this wedding is going to play out. And she doesn't want any type of problems, issues, tension, stress, none of that. So she has opted to not tell her parents about her second pregnancy. And I kind of understand where she's coming from. She wants this wedding to go off without a hitch. She doesn't want any issues or anything like that. And she doesn't want to have the risk of possibly her parents, completely backing out of it and not wanting to pay for it or whatever. So even though I don't really agree with not telling the parents about the second pregnancy, it might be a better idea to not tell them right before the wedding. So Kobe meets up with his friend Temperature, and Temperature asks him, well, how was the white woman back home? And Kobe said, well, Emily's definitely wife material, but she does have a nasty attitude and she's very controlling. So then Kobe's friend goes into this whole thing about how the man is the one that is in control. The woman has to bow down to the man. These very ancient, archaic type of beliefs of the roles that men and women play. And I'm not going to go into a 20-minute soliloquy about how the way Temperature thinks it's outdated, and you can't really. I'm not even going to go into all of that because it's obvious that the things that Temperature is saying to Kobe is very problematic. And I feel like Kobe is just letting him talk because Kobe knows better. He knows that he's not going to be able to stand up to Emily, go against Emily and the family. He knows that's not going to happen. So he's just going to let his friend talk. But his friend does want him to be more assertive and to step up more as a man. Temperature also suggests, after Kobe tells him about the second pregnancy, Temperature also suggests that Kobe moved to Columbus, Ohio, because there's a bigger African community there. So he won't feel so left out. And there's also more job opportunities for him in Columbus, Ohio, because he's going to have two children to take care of. And once the father finds out that they're having a second child, the father is not going to be pleasant to be around. So I don't know how Kobe is going to bring this up to Emily about moving to Columbus, Ohio. Kobe probably understands that it's completely futile and it's not going to work. So why would Emily want to move into a community where there's more Africans and away from her family? Why would she want to do that? In Salina, Kansas, she is the princess. She has all of her minions around her to do her bidding. Why would she want to move in an environment that might be hostile, where she has no backup, no support, no nothing? I don't think so. So later on, they all have a family dinner, and Temperature is invited. And as soon as he sits down, Temperature starts talking about how in Ohio it's a whole lot better because there's more Africans there. There's this whole African community there. And Emily makes a joke about, well, you're definitely not going to see that in Salina, Kansas. So Emily orders for Kobe, and the friend sees this and he points this out because he's taking mental notes on all the points of where Emily seems to be the one making all the decisions and, taking control of things. So in his confessional, Temperature says that the key is to teach the wife what they're supposed to do, as if they're children and they don't know what to do for themselves and they need a man to show them the way. So Like I said, I'm not going to waste any time talking about temperature and its problematic way of thinking. And if maybe this is just a cultural difference thing, but I felt like, temperature should have read the room. And he says he's been living in America for about a year and some months. So I would think that Temperature would know how to conduct himself in public when he's around other Americans. And he understands that the majority of Americans don't go with that way of thinking, don't think like him, don't think like the way they think in some parts of Cameroon. I would think that he would know that by now, but he's completely oblivious. So he talks about, this whole thing about, men being in control and men this and men that. He talks about that at the dinner table. And then he says that Emily needs to show him more respect because Kobe comes from royalty. He is royalty. And everybody at the table is completely shocked. I wonder if they were having images of Eddie Murphy and coming to America and all of the riches and the wealth that that family had in the fictional country of Zamunda. I don't know if that's what they were thinking. So Temperature says, yeah, Kobe is from a royal family. And Emily was like, you never told me that. And Emily's like, how could you not tell me that? That's like a big thing that you left out, and how could you not even mention this? So everybody's completely shocked. And so Kobe says, you know what, let me explain to you what's really going on here. So Kobe says that his father is from a royal family, and he says that in Cameroon you have several tribes, and these tribes have various chiefdoms. And so his father is the head of one of these tribes. He's part of this chiefdom for one of these tribes. And Kobe's like, that's got nothing to do with me, because we all know that Kobe was raised by his mother, not his father. So he doesn't really have a relationship with his father. So whatever royalty may be going on his father's side of the family really has nothing to do with Kobe. It hasn't reached Kobe. So Kobe's like, I'm my own person. I do my own thing. I'm not part of that whole royalty thing. So yeah. So just like that, in an instant, they probably went from, oh my God, Kobe's like the Prince of Zamunda, down to unemployed, no money, Kobe. So Temperature goes on to talk about how, men need to be in control. And he says that Emily belongs to Kobe. And I was surprised that Emily's father didn't challenge Temperature more. But maybe Emily's father, understood that it was futile to challenge someone like Temperature, because people like Temperature are set in their ways. There's no way you can convince them otherwise. Life has to show them. There's nothing you can say to someone like Temperature to make him think differently. So life just has to be the lesson for Temperature. But the sister tried to challenge him. The mother tried to explain to him that, look, it's not like that with Kobe and Emily. They just need to kind of figure it out on their own. But it's no such thing as one is in more control of the other. Whatever the situation is, everybody at that table knew that there was no way in hell that Kobe was going to be able to stand up against Emily, to assert himself against Emily, to take any type of power or control away from Emily. It's just not going to happen. It's just not realistic. Emily runs the show. Everybody else are just her minions, and that's just how it is. Her father can't stand up against her. Kobe for sure can't stand up against her. It's just not going to happen. So let's just let Temperature run his mouth, and then we'll all laugh about it later behind his back. So the father said Emily's pretty headstrong and it's just not going to work. So I don't understand what's going on with this guy Temperature. It's all useless. It's futile. We all know the what's up. Let's just forget about Temperature and let's move on to Patrick and Thais. So Thais has finally made the decision to tell her father that she's going to be getting married to Patrick. And she's extremely nervous about calling her father and telling him this. And when she does call her father, she tells her father that she's got something to say to him, but she's very, very nervous. And so she looks over to her man, her partner, her support group, Patrick, to see if he can help in any way. And Patrick is just like, no, you go ahead and tell him. So she decides to tell her father that, they're going to be getting married. And man, if looks could kill. That man's left eye literally twitched when she said to him that she was going to be getting married to Patrick. And the dad says, already? And so Patrick can tell that the dad is not taking this news very well at all. So what does he decide to do? He decides to abandon Thais and let her deal with this on her own, which I thought was so cowardly. And it just made Patrick look like he wasn't worth crap. How can you leave her side when she has to tell her very severe father that she's going to be doing the one thing he never wanted her to do? How could you leave her side at that moment? And even if he didn't understand the severity of what was going to be told to the father, if he didn't understand anything about how the father felt about him and how the father felt about Americans, you don't leave your fiance's side when she has to deliver this news to her father, because Patrick wants us to believe that Emily's family love him. He gets along with them very, very well. And so to him, it was like no big deal to tell them that they were getting married. So why would you abandon her? You saw that the father's reaction wasn't what you expected. So that should have made you want to stay more by her side and to be there to support her. But he bailed. So you force her to tell her father. You made it such a big deal about, you need to tell your father before we get married. You got to tell your father before we get married. And the girl kept on telling him, I will tell my father at my own time when I'm ready to tell him. Let's just get married first. And he didn't want to listen. He didn't want her to just deal with her father in her own way. So she does exactly what he asked her to do, and then he bails. So the dad questioned her, how can she be there this whole entire time and not even tell him that she was planning to get married? And so she lies to her father and she was like, you know what? I really wasn't sure if I really wanted to marry him. The whole purpose of her coming to America was to marry him. So I don't remember and I don't recall at any moment where she was like, I don't want to marry him. I don't want to do this. They had their arguments. They definitely had their arguments, but she was the one that wanted to elope to Vegas, and she found that little whatever you want to call it, that fly by night wedding chapel, and she wanted to get married right then and there. So she didn't even want to go through like a traditional wedding ceremony or anything like that. She wanted to elope and get married at the Elvis chapel and just get it over with and be done with it. So for her to say, well, I wasn't even sure that I was even going to get married, so why would I even tell you that I was going to get married? That was another lie that she told her father. So the father talks about how he doesn't trust Americans. He tells her that the Americans are manipulative and they're just going to use you. And the father tells her that, you're just going to end up divorced. So no, you need to come back home, stop playing games and come back home. Thais sort of believes her father about the whole thing about Americans being manipulative and, trying to use you or whatever. She's kind of like listening to the things that her father is saying, because she says that, Patrick definitely has changed since the last time she saw him when he came to visit her in Brazil. Like he's not the same person. So she's sort of like kind of believing what her father's telling her, because this is not the same Patrick. So the dad tells her, you need to come back home ASAP. Stop playing and come back home. So when she's done with her father, she calls Patrick back in, and she tells her dad, she tells Patrick, I told my dad that, we're going to get married, and he is completely against it. She says that he doesn't want me to marry you and he wants me to go back to Brazil. And she says that a part of her kind of does want to go back. She says that she misses her family. She misses her life over there. And Patrick says this is the first time that he's ever seen Thais cry. So he knows that this is pretty serious. And so she tells him, like, what if I did go back to Brazil? And he tells her, no, I don't want you to leave. So Patrick, I hope you feel like a total fool for forcing her to do this, because she wanted to handle this her own way. She knows her father better than you. So she knows how her father was going to react. And if the whole goal and the point of this was for y'all to get married, well, now that's going to be questionable. I really do believe she's still going to get married, even though in the next scene or in the preview for next week, we see her packing her suitcase as if she's going back to Brazil. I have a feeling that they're still going to get married. So moving on from there, Bilal and Shaida. So Bilal and Shaida has consulted with her attorney, her attorney who's in Trinidad, and she wants to have a conversation with Bilal about it. So she tells Bilal, I called my attorney and he went over the prenuptial agreement, and he basically advised me that I should not sign it because it favors you, it protects you, and it leaves absolutely nothing for me. My interests are not protected at all, so I really shouldn't sign it. So then Shaida says that if she starts her own business in Kansas City, she wants to ensure, and she wants the prenup to reflect this, that that business is going to be 100% hers. So if anything should happen, she's going to leave with her business. And even though Bilal will be helping her start the business, definitely he will be helping her fund the business until she's able to make a profit. That is still going to be her baby, and it's going to belong to her 100%. Bilal doesn't like this. And so he gives her this example about, what if I start this real estate company and you help me with it and you help me grow it and it turns over like this huge profit and I'm making like $1 million a year or whatever. And then if nothing works out, if it doesn't work out between us, I walk away with my real estate business. Even though you helped me build it, you get nothing at all. And that was the example that he gave her. I'm like, okay, and what's your point, Bilal? And your point is what? So what do you want her to have? You want her to have absolutely nothing? If this marriage goes south and if she does the things that will enact the prenup, you want her to leave with nothing at all because you're so deathly afraid of this woman taking you to the cleaners like your ex-wife took you to the cleaners. Because you're so deathly afraid of that, you want her to get into this marriage, to leave her family behind, leave her country behind, start a whole new life here, be in this hostile environment, and if anything should go south, she gets nothing. That's how you want. You get everything. You get her business. You get whatever y'all build together, whatever y'all put into this marriage together. You take it all and you leave her with absolutely nothing. You want to leave her completely destitute. Is that what you're saying, Bilal? Because I am. So you don't want her to have any children. If she has her own business and if things go south, you want to keep her business 100%. Whatever else that she helps you build within this marriage, you're going to keep it all. You're going to keep the house. You don't want to pay her alimony. You don't want her to have anything at all. And you just like, what are you doing? Why don't you just stay by yourself and just date? Just stay single and then just date. Because why would any woman want to marry someone who, number one, forces them to find a prenuptial agreement, hopes and prays that they don't really look at that prenuptial agreement too closely, questions why she would even talk to an attorney about the prenuptial agreement, then just date. Don't get married. Don't get married. You are so afraid. I don't know what your ex-wife did to you. I would love to find out what this woman did to you to turn you into this monster. But Bilal, maybe you need to consider just staying single because this is just too much of a hassle. And I am so glad that Shaida is taking advantage of the good sense that God gave her and called her attorney in Trinidad and had him go over this prenuptial agreement. And I'm so glad that she is putting something in there to protect her interest. Bilal, you're crazy. And the fact that thinking about Bilal makes me think about his ex-wife, and it just enrages me even more how the ex-wife waltzed into that house to kind of threaten and bully Shaida about how she can't have anything and she can't take anything because this is for her children. That really irks the hell out of me. She's in a hostile environment. And also the previews that show Shaida talking to her soon-to-be mother-in-law, I know that whole conversation is going to go south. I know that mother-in-law is going to say some very problematic things. I'm going to have to put her on my list of people that I can't stand in this whole Bilal and Shaida situation because Shaida is in a hostile. Shaida, stop talking to his people. Don't talk to his ex-wife anymore. Don't talk to his mother-in-law. Don't talk to his mother. Don't talk to his sister. Don't talk to anybody. Just talk to your own sisters, your own family, and your own attorney in Trinidad because you are in a hostile environment. Let me calm down. Okay. So, and I'm glad that Shaida said, hell yeah, he's going to help me start my business. Hell yeah, he's going to fund this business, but I'm going to be the one who's going to put my blood, sweat, and tears into my business. So if anything should happen, yeah, my business is going to be, I'm taking my business with me. It's going to be 100% mine. I don't give a damn about how much money he put in, how much time he put into it. I don't really give a damn about none of that. If things go south, my business, my baby is coming with me. Good for you, Shaida. Moving on to Muhammad and Eve. So Muhammad and Eve, they talk after their fight. And, I think it's the next day or whatever. And, they talk about, well, let's try to have a better day today than we did yesterday, because they had that big argument where Muhammad told Eve, like, if you don't move fast enough with this wedding, I'm going to get me another sponsor. That's a huge red flag, Eve. I need you to pay attention. That is a huge red flag for him to say that. That he would rather replace you than stick it out with you if you keep dragging your feet about this wedding. Eve, the more I watch you, the more you're becoming like very low, like low frequency, a low frequency type of woman. The more I watch you, Eve, the more disappointed I am in you. So, Muhammad does apologize to her for the things that he said. So later on that day, she meets up with her friend, Tatiana, one of the gangster friends, because her friends to me are like gangsters, of the way that they interrogated Muhammad and purposely wanted to make him feel uncomfortable, and had absolutely no respect for him as a man, no respect for him as a Muslim, no respect for him as a foreigner, no respect for him as Eve's fiance. Because her friends at that first dinner, they show up with their cleavage, their boobs hanging out in front of him, very disrespectful, asking him very, very personal questions. Were you a virgin? What was your first time? Well, how did you know what to do if you're a virgin? Are you watching adult movies? All of these horrible questions, disrespectful questions. And Eve just sat there like a lump on a log, not doing anything to protect her man, but it wants her man to protect her. Let me calm down. Okay. So Eve tells her friend that Muhammad told her that he wants to get into the sponsor. And so the friend was like, a sponsor? He refers to you as a sponsor? And then Eve was like, well, I am technically his sponsor. And so her friend was like, well, I know you're his sponsor, but he didn't have to refer to you as such, because, you're actually his fiance. So she tells her friend, the situation with Muhammad about that. And Eve says in her confessional that, he did apologize and that she is trying to be more understanding. More understanding of what? Were you trying to be more he told you clear as day that he would rather get another person to help him get his papers than fool with you. Even though he's supposed to be in love with you and you're the love of his life, you're supposed to be his future wife. He would rather kick you to the curb and find somebody, anybody, pull anybody off the street to help him get these papers instead of waiting on you. So she tells her friend, well, Muhammad does have an amazing, kind soul and heart. So now she's trying to pump him up because, it's so hot and cold with Eve, because the last time she was with her friends, she was talking about how he's so controlling and he makes me do this and he makes me do that and he wants me to be Muslim and He controls what I wear and he controls what I think and controls what I say. And now she's telling her friend, oh, he has an amazing, kind soul and heart. Like, which is it, Eve? And so then Eve wants to bring Muhammad and her friends together again. I don't know why. And so she's like really traumatized and she's crying and she's in this dilemma of like, she doesn't want to lose her friends. I can't lose my friends because I don't have a relationship with my family, and I don't want to lose my friends because they're everything to me. They're my family, and I don't want to have to lose my friends over Muhammad. Why do you have to lose your friends over anybody? Why can't you keep your friends, keep Muhammad, but then just don't force them to share the same space all the time? So she tells Muhammad that she wants to, bring them all together, Muhammad and her friends. And Muhammad is like, no, I don't want to be around those women. Are you crazy? The last time I was around them, they were very rude and disrespectful and they were interrogating me. No, I don't want to see them. And so she wants to also have this ritual. I think Eve is Native American. So she wants to have like a Native American ritual because she wants him to like open up his mind to the things that are important to her in her own spirituality. And he's kind of like, okay, girl, whatever, but I just want to be around your friends. He finally gives in because what else is he going to do? So he finally gives in, and they do it's called a fire ceremony, where you get rid of negativity and you manifest more positive things into your life. And so they do the fire ceremony. Muhammad is there and he's just standing there, and you all have to take turns to put something in the fire to get rid of negativity, to cleanse. Oh, you put something in the fire, I think, like to cleanse anything that you want to be cleansed or to purify or to get rid of negativity or whatever. So they asked Muhammad, well, do you want to go to the fire, and do you want to cleanse anything? And Muhammad was like, no, I'm fine over here. He didn't want to participate at all. Muhammad says in his confessional that this ceremony will not bring me any closer to her friends. Yeah. And so after they do all of that, the friends ask Muhammad, well, we thought that you didn't like us and you didn't really want to fool with us anymore after that first dinner. And Muhammad was like, yeah, you're right. I don't like you. I don't want to fool with you. I don't want nothing to do with y'all. And so the friends are like, well, we don't understand. Like, what did we do that was so wrong? And he says, y'all were asking me all of these questions. And they said, well, we're just looking out for our friend. That's why we had to ask you these questions. And Muhammad said, well, there's a way to ask questions. The way that y'all were doing it, y'all were like interrogating me, which they were. It was extremely disrespectful. I cannot imagine asking my friend's fiance, boyfriend, husband, oh, when was your first time? And how did you do this? And how did you know how to do that to her? And do you watch adult films? And I can't imagine asking my friend's husband or fiance these types of questions, regardless of who they were, where they came from, what their history is, what the situation is. I'm not going to be asking personal, intimate questions of my friends' partners. That's not going to happen. So, but they thought it was just perfectly fine. They saw nothing wrong with it. And all the questions were centered around sex. It wasn't even like they were asking, well, like, what career do you want to have? How are you going to take care of Eve? Like, what do you want to do here? As far as like, do you want to go to school, or do you have a trade, or do you want to learn a skill? It was not, everything was centered around sex. So how are you looking out for Eve when you're asking him those kind of questions? Knowing that in his culture, those types of questions are absolutely like disrespectful and prohibited. Forget about that. In any culture, those questions were just wrong. So, Eve, she tries to tell them to calm the hell down. She doesn't want them to argue. And Eve said that she's very disappointed that Muhammad is not open-minded toward her beliefs. Okay, then leave. Eve, please. Then leave him. Leave him. He wants to him, you are replaceable. He's not open-minded to your beliefs, your spirituality, the way you live your life, the way you dress, the way you think, your friends, all of that. He's not open to that. Then break up with him. Why do you want to force a square peg into a round hole? You're trying to make him into something that he will never be. He will never like your friends. He will never like the way you dress. He will never be okay with you not being Muslim. He will never be okay with you not accepting him to be Muslim and following his way of life. So why don't you just break up with him? Moving on to Benny and Ari. So the wedding is soon approaching, and the dress is chosen. And Benny and Ari, this whole entire segment, they want to take us down the rabbit hole. They want to throw this red herring at us, like, oh, we don't know if we're going to get married. We don't know if we're going to get married. We don't know. They're going to get married. They're fine. Ain't nothing going on with Benny and Ari. Benny says something about, well, if we don't end up getting married, then I have to go back to my country. And that's really going to be painful for me because I don't want to lose my son. He said nothing about losing Ari. He just talked about if it doesn't work out and he has to go back to Ethiopia, he doesn't want to lose his son. He said nothing about losing the love of his life, Ari. So it's just a whole bunch of nonsense. They're going to get married because the sisters threw wine in Ari's face. And so she's not going to, let that go for naught. They threw wine in her face. His sisters threw a glass of wine, an entire glass of wine into her face. So she will be marrying Benny because she's not going to be made a fool of for nothing. They're going to get married. They're fine. They need to stop it. Moving on to Guillermo and Kara. So Guillermo, he acts like he has all these issues with Kara and her controlling ways and her being so bossy and micromanaging his life and all of that. And so he calls his mother to talk about it. He tells his mother that he was at the barber shop and the barber was telling him that, that whatever issues you see before you get married, they're going to be there after you get married. So just be prepared for that. So the mother tries to paint this happy ever after picture of marriage and telling Guillermo that she was trying to make him think more positive and like trying to let him know that everything is going to be okay because the two of you love each other and it's all going to work out because love always prevails and and I'm just like, no, mom, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. what he sees in Kara is what he's going to get for the rest of his life. And it might even get worse because now that she's got him, after they get married, now that she's got him locked in and he can't go nowhere that easily, oh, she's really going to run amok. Right now, I think that she's kind of playing it safe with him, believe it or not. As bad as she is, I think she's kind of playing it safe with him. And the reason why I think that she's playing it safe is because once they get married, I don't see Kara getting any better. I see her getting a whole lot worse because now he ain't got nowhere to go. He ain't got nowhere to go now. And yeah, it's not going to get any better. So I don't know why the mother was making it seem like, it's not that bad and it's going to work out and don't worry about it. He needs to worry about it. The words that the barber told him when he was getting his haircut, the words that that woman told him were the wisest words that he will ever hear. What you see is what you get, and it might get worse. So Kara's having her bachelorette party, and she brings up to her friends that, excuse me, she tells her friends, and can y'all believe that he actually had the nerve to complain about, my personality and my ways 2 days before we get married? He brings up all these issues of how he doesn't like how I'm like this and how I'm like that, and he can't stand that, and he wants me to change. Well, he needs to understand that this is just how I am. I was born like this. I came out of the womb like this, and I'm not going to change. There you have it. There you have it. She's not going to change. She ain't going nowhere. It's not going to change. That Kara that he's having an issue with, that's going to be the Kara that he's going to be stuck with. And you know what? As much as Guillermo wants to complain, he's going to marry Kara. He's going to stay with her. And he's going to listen to her. Okay, he is going to listen to her. He's not going to try to stand up against her and challenge her and fight her and tell her, no, I'm not doing this. He's going to listen to her. She's got her foot on his neck so tough, he is going to listen to her. She will be the one controlling everything. She's going to tell him what to do, how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, and he's going to fall in line, hook, line, and sinker. He's not gonna try to take back any type of power. Kara runs the show just like Emily runs the show, and they're not going to change, and their men are going to accept it and they're going to like it. Moving on to Jibri and Miona. So the parents call down Jibri and Miona and they have a very serious conversation with them. It was so tense. I mean, I felt like my heart started beating faster. I felt like I was also in trouble. And so they come down and the dad says, so what are your plans? What are your plans on moving out? And Jabri is like, okay, so what are you saying? That you want us to leave right now? You're like kicking us out? And so the dad was like, the parents tell them, look, since day one, y'all knew the what's up, that living here was temporary. So because you knew that it was temporary, we're assuming that you were making plans with life after you move out. And so Jabri tells them that no, they really haven't really put much thought into it. They haven't really thought of anything. So the dad says, where are you getting married? Jabri, I don't know. The dad says, when are you getting married? Jabri, I don't know. Okay, why don't you know these things? And Jabri says, well, I was hoping that y'all would help us out with all of that. And the parents were like, excuse me? And Jabri was like, yeah, because I thought that y'all were going to help us out with all of that. And Jabri says, y'all are talking to me like I'm 15 years old. And the father says, well, you're acting like you're 15 years old, expecting your mommy and your daddy to help you with your life. And you are 28 years old. Jabri, why don't you have a job? Why aren't you working? Because Kara's got about 20 jobs. Why don't you have at least one? Why don't you get up and go to work every day? Because when this particular scene started, him and Miona were in the bed playing cards. Why weren't you asleep, getting your rest to wake up in the morning and go to work and make money? Why don't you have a job, Jabri? You have a wife who's a soon-to-be wife who's coming in from another country, who cannot work, cannot do anything for herself. Why don't you have a job? Can you call Kara so she can lend you a couple of jobs? Because I don't understand why you're not working. And then your friend David was offering you a truck driving job, which I thought would have been fantastic. To get the truck driving job, travel the United States, or however far the distance is, travel with Miona so she can see more of the state or more of the country or whatever the situation is. And, y'all would sleep in the truck, travel, I thought it would have been a great adventure, and maybe even, maybe TLC can even give y'all the a spinoff, Jabri and Miona on the road again or something like that. I thought that would have been a great idea, but you want to stay home and wait for this song to take off or whatever the hell is going on with your music career. You talk about how you are creative and I have to create, and I just die inside if I'm not creating. But I don't see you creating. I don't see you writing songs. I don't see you in the studio. I don't see you doing much of anything. So, like, what's up with that? So the parents are absolutely correct. And Jabri's the kind of guy that I feel like if you don't push him, he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to do things the way he wants to do them, take his sweet time in doing stuff. And yeah, and nothing will get done. So the fact that his parents are forcing him to do something, because Jabri says, well, if that's how y'all are going to be, which I'm like, how are they? They're just asking you, what are your plans after you get married? How are you going to start living your life after you're married? And then he gets all in a hissy fit and he's like, well, I thought I had until the end of the month. And they're like, okay, yeah, you do. You do have until the end of the month. But the end of the month is not that far away. So what are your plans? What's going to be happening in 30 days? Because you know that living here is temporary. And so he gets all in a huff and he's like, you know what? We're not even going to wait until the end of the month. We're going to leave right now. And so supposedly they're going to move out before the end of the month. And go where and do what? Please don't tell me you're going to go sleep on someone's couch. You're going to take high maintenance Miona to go sleep on someone's futon. Please say it ain't so, Jabri. That is my review of 90 Day Fiance. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. This is 37 minutes. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please do not forget to rate the video. If you like this content, please subscribe and I'll talk to you later.